Okay, kids, it's time for another episode of the Fueled by Weird podcast, the only podcast that is actually supposed to be here today. I'm Chris Daly, and today I have the the absolute pleasure of chatting with one of my absolute favorite people in the entire world, Kevin Smith. Kevin, how are you today, sir?
I'm on the phone to my lawyer for that. Not even supposed to be here today, ripoff.
I
That's the
prob
years it took me to build my fortune off the back of that line, and here you're just scampering away with it on a podcast for free. I'm outraged. I'm good. How
I'll,
are you?
I'll talk to my editor. The check will be in the mail.
Yes, thank you.
I'm doing incredible. I can't even tell you. Well, again, I really appreciate you meeting with me today. Usually when I start these things off, I like to start with a little bit of an icebreaker, just to kind of break the ice. So, what book or TV series or even film series has had the most significant impact on your life?
I would have to say it would be Star Wars. I was insanely preoccupied with Star Wars throughout my childhood, and then didn't put it down when I reached adolescence, and then didn't put it down when I reached my 20s, which nowadays that's de rigueur. I mean, shit, you can fucking make a living now off of just talking about Star Wars. But
Yeah.
when I was a kid, that was something that was the domain. There was no internet yet, right? So even in my early 20s, we didn't know how many people still loved fucking Star Wars. I mean, believe it or not, there was a time where we weren't all connected, and it wound up in the work. Like the references to Star Wars and my flicks like proliferated because after we made the first flick and people reacted to like the Death Star contractor scene, I was like, oh my God, there are people out there that also remember Star Wars. He naively said, and I started like putting it into the work. So I would have to say, as much as I love Batman, Star Wars, like I've spent an inordinate amount of time with Star Wars over the course of my life, both personally, and oddly enough, professionally. Certainly not to the level of Dave Filoni and Jon Favreau, but Star Wars never left my life, and I also like got to incorporate it in my work, and I've been in a Star Wars fucking movie as a voice and shit. So it's yeah, I would have to say hands down Star Wars.
That's fair. Uh,
Yeah.
I think for me, this is
I guess wait, you know what? I mean the Askewniverse counts. I guess that really shaped my shit. That is 30 years of my fucking life, and I've been alive 53 years, so I've been working on the Askewniverse longer than I've been not working on the Askewniverse. And that is a fictional world of fandom, and I am its number one fan. So I guess that even more than Star Wars has profoundly impacted my life, both professionally and personally. And then Star Wars right after it.
sure. Well, I think for me, I definitely, and I mean this with all the flattery it can give you, but the Askewniverse for me is definitely has been inspirational and significant in my life because without your movies, there's a bunch of people that are very close friends of mine that I never would have met or even been able to get close to. It was actually something that brought me and my dad together a lot closer. He actually passed away a year ago. So it just the fact that I'm talking to you now, he would be so excited. And I had a buddy that passed away this last year that the three of us had your movies in common. There's some friends that I'll make Mallrats references, and I've made some amazing friends because there's only the people that are seeing your movies that have got the references. So I definitely have to say that you've been a huge inspiration on my life.
That means the absolute world to me. I know how movies can become shorthand in a relationship, and that's how my father primarily communicated with me was by the movies that we shared.
Yeah.
My friendships used to be just punctuated with the lines from Coen Brothers movies, and we spoke in Animal House dialogue. It's just the stuff that becomes the cartilage of your life, and it's connective tissue between you and others, shared frame of reference. That's existed before I entered the fray, and I was a person who clung to that. Like before I was a maker or a filmmaker, I was just a film fan. And one day I'll go back to being just a film fan and all the critics will be happy. But, I started as part of the audience and migrated or aggregated into onto the other side of the screen, right? But that fandom part of you never goes away, or at least it never. I speak for myself personally. Maybe some people lose their fucking sense of fandom, but for me, it has never gone away. Even though I've met some of these fucking legends and been involved with some of these franchises that meant the world to me and stuff like that. Like at root, I'm a fan. So when another fan tells me like your stuff does this to me, instantly I can equate it to all the shit that still means something to me in my life, made by other people, that inspired me, brought me together with people I dearly love. I mean, think about it. I never would have met like and struck up a big friendship with Scott Mosier were it not for like obscure works like fucking Leningrad Cowboys Go America, the Aki Kaurismäki flick. It's being a fan of a thing opens up so many possibilities in as much as it creates a bridge with another fan who's like, oh my God, I know that. Like that was before we had the internet and all like-minded individuals could find each other.
Yeah.
That was how you fucking gauged your friendships or started friendships, man. Like trading off on what movies are the ones that mean the most to you and what movies you communicate through and stuff. So that compliment is insanely well received because I get it. I from my own personal fandom, I understand that. So thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Absolutely. I mean, I know there was one time at work, someone said, "Are you angry?" I said, "Yeah, I'm angry." And I just don't have enough ways to monosyllabically enough to express myself. And this guy's like, "Did you just quote Mallrats?" And I was like, "You know Mallrats?" And oh man, I'm trying to keep myself
So
together, man. I can't
we're
believe I'm meeting you.
up on here. Let me make it easier for you. We're coming up on in January. It'll be 30 years since Clerks went to Sundance. So I've been doing this 3 decades. That kind of compliment still thrills me. Like that I'm not over that. Like thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Anyway, we'll move on. So, the concept of my show, Fueled by Weird, is all the stuff that you're into, all the stuff that your hobbies, interests, and all of that, that's the stuff that fuels your weird. So, what's some stuff that, fuels your weird?
Oh, I think it's I wear my weird on my sleeve, right? Like my fandom is Kevin Smith fandom, and I get to be a part of it and I get to engineer it as well. So I spend a lot of time doing ridiculously Kevin Smith oriented things. So, like we just did Fat Man Beyond the other night, me and Mark, big passion of mine. Still love kicking back and doing that show. Been podcasting since 2007. So I jumped into it early on. The movies, cinema has always fueled my weirdness, even in as much as movies have shaped my life, good or bad. They've shaped my life. Like I believe in the 3-act structure, which is ridiculous because that's only a storytelling device, and life doesn't even have 3 acts. And third act indicates you have some control over it, and we never have control over our fucking third acts and stuff. Yeah. But at a certain point over my development, I was fed so many movies, and not movies through like a phone or through a cable network, like just going to the movies, which was one of the only options we had when I was a kid. We didn't have a lot of entertainment options and shit, but that fueled the notion that like, oh, I want to do that. I want to do what those people do. Like that seems like a fun job. It affected me so deeply that shifted my existence and where I was in the universe to be in that world. You know, it like fucking shaped me so much so that I was like, it's not enough to just go to the movies and watch movies. I want to be in the movie business. And you know, that's the entertainment, being, you know, the storyteller, instead of the person who's being told the story, like appealed to me absolutely immensely. But it was also the kind of job when I was a kid that people were, you know, like, oh, well, that's a tough business and you should really have a fallback, shit like that. And I was young enough and dumb enough and full of cum enough at age like 23. Well, 21 is when I saw Slacker on my 21st birthday. And that's what made me want to like be a filmmaker. Then I went to the Vancouver Film School, met Scott Mosier there and Dave Klein, who I would make Clerks with like a year and change later. And so at age 23, like I make my first film, and mercifully, ever since then, I have been living that life that I dreamed about. Like, oh my God, wouldn't it be great to make movies for a living? And in fact, it's gone beyond the like dream, the initial dream of like, oh my God, I would love to make movies. Movies opened up the door to anything else, to a world of wonder where it's just like, oh, I want a podcast when that first broke open. And I've done that. Oh, I want to host, I want to interview people. And I've done that shit. I want to write comics and I've done that. Like, you know, it's, I grew up watching TV, and, you know, TV was like my fucking third parent. And so, you know, there was a moment where we had a fucking TV show for like 7 seasons and shit with comic book men. And so, you know, that stuff which fueled my weird as a kid, and when I say a kid, I mean even in my 20s, at an early age I was like, what, wouldn't it be great if that was your living? Like, wouldn't it be great if somehow all of that was how you earned, instead of having a fucking job that you run to all these things for to fucking escape and mitigate the effects of? What if all the things that you run to for comfort were the actual fucking job? That's a gamble worth fucking taking, risking, because if it works out, oh my God, fucking what a great life that would be. And that's been 30 years of that. And so then I got to take my weird to a larger canvas. You know, it used to be like you shared it with your friends. You know, you and how many friends do we even really have over a fucking course of a lifetime? But suddenly, because of the job, I had a platform and an audience, so I could share my weird with them and like go deeper. Like I'll never forget fucking, you know, people understanding that I was a Degrassi fan to the point that I wound up on the show. You know, like I was just a big fan who like threw a Degrassi jacket into Mallrats, and then years later got to play myself like on Degrassi, The Next Generation. So my weird and the things that I've always enjoyed, I always gravitated towards and then championed. You know, like when I started, you know, now we live in a comic book culture. When I started, like fucking people weren't talking about that shit. Like Mallrats and Brody were like not recognizable. Like they were weird outliers. Like, does a person like that really exist? Until the internet, the advent of the internet. And then we found out the world is full of fucking Brodies, man.
Mhm.
It's like when you date somebody in high school. Like I always think of my high school girlfriend, Kim Lochran. When she was dating me in high school, like, oh my God, like you're so different than everyone else. You're so different than all the other boys, you know, until she went to college. And then in college, she finds out that like, oh, there's a zillion fucking Kevin Smiths. Like they're not in high school. They're rare, but here, fucking, this is where they all are and shit. And you realize that the stage is getting bigger. And rather than kind of like keep my passions to myself, I'd always go out there and talk about them. Like, I'm so glad that I embraced comic books and talked about them early in the work, because slowly the world shifted toward my interest. And you know, I was like well positioned. I was like, I've been talking about this shit for years and whatnot. So it's, I've found that like the things that I'm passionate about or what fuels my weird are the things that have made all my dreams come true, for heaven's sakes, and then manifested the reality, or manifested um the the reality of dreams that I didn't even dare dream or knew that I would have, or something like that. No, I'm not just because like shit, the technology didn't exist, but you know, I didn't think it was possible to spin that many plates. I thought you had to pick one thing and concentrate on it. And it turns out you could. If you're Chris Nolan, you pick one thing and concentrate on it, you become an absolute maestro at that thing.
Yeah.
I had that like pull to be like, I want to be great at one thing. I've always felt like, well, shit, this film opened the door to all these other things that would seem interesting to me, like things I've always wanted to try or things that I like that other people do. Like, I wound up in podcasting because I grew up listening to Howard Stern. And I was like, oh my God, like, sit around, talk to your friends every morning. Like, what a great fucking job that is.
Yeah.
I wound up standing on a stage and doing Q&As, and then later on an evening with and all that shit, and then comedy specials, because I grew up loving George Carlin. I was like, that looks fucking fun. That'd be fucking amazing. I made a film because I saw Richard Linklater did it with Slacker. I was like, that'd be fantastic. I'm a firm believer in, like, in order to be it, you got to see it. And whenever I see something that I'm interested in, I investigate it sooner or later, man, to see if, like, is it possible that I could do that sort of thing? Could I be involved in that sort of thing? And not even on a professional level. I'm not always like, how do I get paid for that sort of thing?
Right.
Just do it just to do it. Like in the beginning of podcasting, it's like nobody was making money. It was just like, what? I could have my own fucking radio show? Oh, that's fantastic. Now it's a goddamn industry and stuff.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, I never go into anything for money. I go into those things because, like, I love them, because I'm passionate about them. And so I lean heavily into the things that I'm weird about. And boy, they've fucking opened up my entire life. They brought me to you. Like, nobody knows who the fuck I am unless I lean into my weird. I was a film fan who was like, maybe I could be a filmmaker. That's leaning into your weird heavily.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, I always say it about myself all the time. I'm a jack of all trades, but a master of none, because, I've had lots of people tell me, you have to focus on one discipline and get good at one. I'm like, why? I mean, life is short. There's so many things out there that maybe I want to try. Like, like podcasting looks interesting to me. Writing is interesting. Making weird videos on the internet is interesting. So why do I have to pick one? And so the fact that I've got validation from my hero is great.
Technology affords you the ability to, like, hop around and try shit out in a way that no generation prior to this one has been able to afford or afford themselves. So think about it. Like, most people did dedicate a lifetime to a craft. Didn't necessarily mean they even liked it, but they picked a path and they went with it. My father, post office, worked at the post office his whole adult life, not because he was like, fuck, I believe in the mail. He was just like, it's a job. I got to pay for my fucking family and shit. Your generation has the luxury of, like, oh, I'm going to try editing. Oh, I'm going to try podcasting. I'm going to try this, because now it's become, the technology to create this shit has become so fucking affordable and so democratized. It's put right into the hands of anybody who wants to give it a shot. And I celebrate that, because that's where the interesting stuff comes from, man. Not from hearing the same, like, news stories from the same fucking 50 people over and over again. You let new voices in, man. And that's how fucking cool, new, exciting things happen that inspire you. Even like when I'm a maker of things, I could still get inspired by seeing somebody kind of reach their peak or break through or something like that. So yeah, it's a great time to try things. I don't care what fucking age you are. If you've ever sat there and been like, listen to the radio and you're like, I'm smarter than these people, I'm funnier than these people, now's your chance. Dive in, do it before you leave this best of all possible worlds. And now it's not like, yeah, but how do I do that? It's like you're holding the fucking very device that you could do it all on, man, and join the conversation, create the conversation even.
Yeah, I mean, the very first podcast I ever did was me and, 4 friends who were just sitting around talking about dumb nerd shit all the time. So we're like, why not record this and let other people listen to it? And turns out there was not a huge audience for it, but there's definitely people out there that want to hear that stuff.
That's the dangerous moment in every podcaster's life, when they realize that having a normal conversation off microphone is a complete waste of time.
Exactly.
Just like, why are we talking to each other here? Let's do it on the mic. That way it's, that's one of the reasons I started podcasting, was the idea that, like, you sit around with your friends and tell jokes or fucking run scenarios or whatever the fuck. And then for the rest of your life, pre-podcasting, at least for me, you'd be like, oh man, remember that one time we talked about that thing and shit like that? and you try to relive it and whatnot. Podcasting for me was putting a microphone on all those conversations and saving them. So it's like, oh, I can listen to this conversation. And the further I went into podcasting, the deeper down the well I went, the more it became like, why am I talking unless a microphone is on? All of this should be captured. And then you realize that's what like put Nixon, under
Yeah, there's
constant
definitely
recording.
pros and cons for sure.
Yeah, you got to edit. You got to be fucking selective. But
Right.
the idea of being able to, you know, capture my life. When I started the Smodcast podcast, I didn't think it would ever become the Smodcast Network. And then when I started the Smodcast Network, I never realized what it was until one day I was like, oh, this is the story of my life. Like, this is what my ongoing autobiography. It captures everything that happened before. It's captured everything that's happening now and into the future. So it became like this weirdly inexpensive way to write an autobiography.
Yeah, and we, that podcast I mentioned before, we did about 13 episodes of it and it kind of just went away. But then, one of my friends that did it passed away this last spring. And now, we've got that recordings of him so we can always go back and he's always going to be with us. So it's so good that we saved it. So yeah, it definitely is a good way to chronicle your life for sure.
Truth. Yeah, I've got conversations with Stan Lee, conversations with Kevin Conroy, conversations with Denny O'Neil, Neil Adams, like a bunch of legends who are fucking gone.
Yeah.
Mercifully, there's, I think in terms of people closest to me, like, I've not lost any people that I've been a podcaster with. You know what I'm saying? It's not like, oh my God, Ralph is dead. Ralph is still very much alive and well. And we've been doing Hollywood Babylon for like 13, 14 years. Mm-hmm. But when they go, I will have, if I'm still around, we'll have like these wonderful records of our conversations. I always told my kid that. I was like, because she don't fuck with my podcast at all. And I don't give a shit. I'm not like, you need to listen to my fucking podcast. Right. But I was like, one day I'm going to drop dead. And those podcasts are going to be a window like back into your father and his world and stuff. I said, so you'll get around to listening to them. Like, I just won't be around to see your reaction to it and shit. But like, I've left you a complete record. You'll never have to wonder who your fucking father is. The complete audio record of who your father is.
Sure. Going back, speaking about your Q&A, I heard you were at Spookala this weekend and you got to meet my friends Steph and Matt, the top hat guy.
Yeah.
How was that? How did that go?
They were lovely, man. Spookala was really great. It reminds me of like a chiller show that we have up in New Jersey. It's also a cool story about something that grew so big that they took it into Tampa, out of Ocala right into Tampa. But I love the horror community. Before I ever thought about being like an independent filmmaker, my dream as a kid, when I'm talking about 13, 14-year-old, was I wanted to be Tom Savini. I wanted to be like a prosthetics guy.
Sure.
Not an artist, which is weird to say because I'm a director, but I'm a visual artist. I'm terrible. So I would have been the worst. Like, I'm not, you got to be a visual artist to be able to sculpt fucking, prosthetics. And that part of the equation I left out. I just loved horror movies so much. I just wanted to work in rubber, and shit. So horror and splatter horror and fucking, rubber horror, monsters, all that shit is so close to my heart, been a part of my life since I was a kid. So going to Spookala, being surrounded by other like-minded fans of the genre, and now being able to walk into a horror convention and have people be like, you made fucking Tusk, you're fucked up. That's a badge of honor. That's very cool.
For sure. Now I want to ask, where your ideas come. I kind of got like a two-part question. I want to ask, when you're coming up with your ideas for your movies and everything, where do you get your ideas from? And I kind of want to throw in, the heart attack. When you, because of the heart attack, are you more willing to take chances that you wouldn't have taken before, now that you've kind of got your...
I wonder that since the heart attack, we'll tack that one first.
Okay.
I often wondered, like, what would the heart attack do? Like, in terms of what kind of reaction would it create in the work? And I don't think it created like, well, now I'm fucking fearless, because I made Dogma, for Christ's sakes. So You know, I'm not like it's not like, well, you know, I saw death, so I don't give a shit anymore. But on some level, it definitely made me more nostalgic. And so the first two movies after my heart attack were Jay and Silent Bob reboot and Clerks 3. And Jay and Silent Bob reboot is the post heart attack movie because everybody's in it. They're
Yeah.
like, oh my God, he lived. So let's go cameo in the movie. Because I guilted them all. Like I would call up people and be like, hey man, can you come out and be in Jay and Silent Bob reboot? Like, where are you shooting? And I was like, oh, we're in New Orleans. Like, that's far. And I was like, oh, far. You do realize I almost fucking died this year. And they're like, all right. So we got a pretty big cast, and that was fun. And it was kind of a party. It was like, hey, I lived, and everybody was came to celebrate that. That was nice. And then Clerks 3, I flat out used the heart attack as, you know, the fucking main plot device, for heaven's sakes. So it has manifested in the work, in as much as not so much like it's made me fearless and now I'll fucking do whatever. Because again, I did make Tusk, and that was before the heart attack, for heaven's sakes.
Right.
So I think more, it certainly made me like, sorry, grabbing a drink. It certainly made me happy. So like the Askewniverse, I absolutely adore, but there was a time online where people made me feel, you know, like, oh, he just fucking makes those Askew movies and shit and blah, blah, blah. And so I stopped for like a long time. There's like almost a 10-year stretch where I didn't make a View Askew movie between Clerks 2 and I guess Reboot.
Yeah.
And so after the heart attack, I guess I was a little bit like, I don't give a shit. Like I almost died. I just want to go up to the attic and play with my toys. And so I did. So the back-to-back Askewniverse adventures probably would not have happened if I hadn't had the heart attack. I probably would have tried to be more strategic about my career had there not been the heart attack. Although, maybe not. Pre-heart attack. Let's look at the output pre-heart attack. Right before the heart attack was Yoga Hosers and Tusk. So I really wasn't being fucking careful with my career at all. Yeah, I guess maybe the heart attack just made me be like, you know what? Fuck it. I want to play with my Askewniverse characters. That made me feel young because when I was a kid, I was making movies with these characters and these actors. And so going back and doing more of them was good for what ailed me at that point. And now, you know, it's certainly manifesting like the movie we just finished called the 4:30 movie. We shot at my movie theater in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey, Smodcastle Cinemas, that me and my friends own. This is the childhood movie theater I grew up going to when I was a kid in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So when we were buying the movie theater, I was like, fuck, man, like that's a brand new set. That's a free set. And I know the people that own this fucking place, so I'm going to write a movie for a movie theater. And, you know, naturally, one would be like, well, shit, from the guy who made Clerks, Ushers. But I didn't write a script about people that work at a movie theater because I never worked in a movie theater. I went further back and I made a 1986 movie about like me and my friends when, you know, the most important thing we had to do was go to the movies on a fucking weekend and pay for one movie and then hop to all the rest at a multiplex and stuff, just skip around the movie theaters. So that movie, as I was writing it, you know, set in 86 and it was based on me and my friends. We didn't fucking curse. Like I didn't start cursing my full head off until I started hanging out with Jason Mewes, like circa 89, 90, maybe 91. So, you know, I'm writing it and there's just no, you know, what I would call edge, but really just meaning there's no place for, you know, fucking the language I'm normally accustomed to pop, you know, to popping into my characters' mouths and subject matter, you know, it's not like overly sexually oriented or grown up and stuff. It's a movie about being a teenager in 1986, and it's, kind of wistful and very sweet. And maybe that's by virtue of age, or maybe the heart attack informed that, where it's like, I've always kind of looked back to some degree in the work. There's always been a tinge of nostalgia kind of to almost everything I do. But now, it's like, this one is the first flick I've made, which feels like, oh, he's a grown up now and he's looking back. Like, which to me, I've always, like, every movie I've done is kind of looked back or been taken from my life. Like Clerks was not like, a fiction. It was autobiographical, for heaven's sakes, to a large degree. Same with Mallrats, same with Chasing Amy. So I've always kind of taken big chunks of who I am and put it into the work. But this one, the 430 movie, is like so fucking deep cuts, deeply personal, and it goes deeper into my personal life than I've previously gone. Like, everything's always kind of stopped at the 90s, and this goes back even further. And I don't know if that's by virtue of the fact that I had a heart attack 5 years ago, or just I'm at an age now where I'm like, oh, I want to do this. Or honestly, it could have just been that I bought a movie theater. I was like, fuck it, I gotta write something. This seems like the story. And since the movie theater, like, here, I can tell you exactly how we get where we got. The movie theater hasn't been touched in eons, so it's fucking ancient, right? And so in theater one, we got these uncomfortable ass fucking theater seats that have been there since me and my friends were going to the multiplex when we were fucking kids. Back before it was multiplex, when first it was a single screen, then became a duplex, and now it's like 5 screens. So these same uncomfortable chairs that we fucking sat through Labyrinth in, first run, are still there. And so the whole movie theater looks ancient as fuck. So that's why I was like, you know what? I'll set this bitch in 1986. I could get away with it because everything
Yeah.
in this fucking old. And then while I was there, I was like, all right, well, if you're doing 86, pull from this, pull from that. So yeah, it wasn't so much wistful as it was pragmatic, where I'm like, this place looks old. Let me try to make a period piece. That might be fun. And we got away with it. Beautiful thing about shooting a period piece is just like, anywhere you point that camera, it just has to be the year you say it is. And, normally when I shoot a movie, we just turn on the camera, whatever's happening in the background doesn't matter, because we're always shooting stuff set for the current world, current, they're not period pieces. Doing 1986 means every time you're looking here, it better be 1986. Everything in the background is 1986. And in that movie theater, once we get inside, it's easy as fuck, man. A popcorn fucking butter machine is from like 1950. Seats are fucking, if I sat in them in the 80s, that means they were there in the fucking 70s. So, the whole thing just has this classic feel to it. And by classic, I mean old as fuck and not updated. And so because of that, I could kind of go in there and be like, all right, let's pretend it's 1986. And it was easy to do without plunking down huge amounts of money. It's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
To me.
that makes sense. And me myself, I used to work in a movie theater as a kid, so I'm super excited for this movie. Not that I'm not excited for any of your movies. And just to put it on record, the two that I see that get the most hate are Yoga Hosers and Jersey Girl. And Yoga Hosers, I love that one because you said it was made for teenage girls. My oldest daughter is a teenage girl, and that was my way to get her into Kevin Smith land, to kind of get her into my world a little bit so she can understand my appreciation for you.
Did
And
she like?
she did like it a lot, actually.
Wow.
She really did.
So you guys are the only two people on the planet who've seen and liked Yoga Hosers.
I loved it. And Jersey Girl, when I saw it, I was before I was a parent, but I'm a girl dad now. So it definitely helped me get ready to be a girl dad. And from one girl dad to another, I definitely appreciate that.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So now I kind of want to talk about, the one of the main reasons we're here, your new book, Maskerade. It's an incredible series. How did you come up with the idea for it?
In the opening, in the intro for the first of the trade paperbacks, because Dark Horse does these wonderful fucking like compilation books where they like to do 4 issues and then put them between covers and then do 4 issues. They're a 4 issue at a time company. So the first 4 issues of Maskerade they put into hardcover, and the second 4 will be another hardcover. Then presumably all 8 will be in one giant hardcover. But the hardcovers they put out, the first 4 issues are fucking gorgeous, man. Just really quality. And they asked me to write an intro. And in the intro, I talked about where it came from. Originally, what became Maskerade started as a pitch for a series based on DC Comics, The Question. And great for HBO Max. The HBO Max guy was like, fucking love it, man. Bring it to JJ's company, because JJ was in charge of like a bunch of DC characters, including The Question. So I went to pitch it at Bad Robot, but the lady I pitched it to was like, this is too dark. And, you know, I was like, man, this is a fucking cool idea.
Yeah.
Well, and then I heard this interview that I had done with Robert Kirkman on Fat Man Beyond, or Fat Man on Batman. I forget which one it was. But Kirkman talked about, I think it was Fat Man Beyond. Kirkman talked about, you know, he loved Marvel and he worked at Marvel. And he was like giving his best to Marvel because that's how they get you, man. They got the characters that you love, and you become, you know, give your best ideas to these corporations just because they, you know, hold Batman fucking captive and stuff. And you want to fucking work with Batman, play with Batman. And so you wind up like giving all your best to these characters that you will never own. And the way Kirkman explained it, he was like, one day I just realized, like, why am I fucking giving my best ideas to Marvel? Fuck it. I'm going to start writing for myself. And that led to The Walking Dead, which led to a fucking fortune.
Yeah.
So I was thinking, like, you know what, man? Like, why am I giving this cool idea, like, to the Question miniseries, or the Question potential Question series? Because it, you know, the Question has such a nebulous background, you can just fucking go. And as long as, you know, I honor the comics and the source material, but, you know, Secret Origin stuff, you get to kind of fucking go in your direction and whatnot. And it was kind of loosey-goosey anyway. Character is created by Ditko, but it's not like when Vic Sage was a boy or something like that. So it meant like there was some runway to work with. But it was very different than, you know, if you just changed the name, it was no longer The Question. Yeah. And so, well, let's change the name, add an ability or two, and fucking like tell the story that me and my friend Andy McElfresh, who I did the podcast Edumacation with for years, him and I were the ones pitching the series. And so I reached out to John Sprengelmeyer, who did like our Jay and Silent Bob Secret Stash logo, and he did the Fat Man logo I used to wear forever and stuff. He's an artist friend of mine. I said, hey man, we want to do this book and this character, and we're called Maskerade, and you want to be a co-creator? And he was like, fuck yeah. So me and Andy gave John like all our notes and like, these are the scripts, and I told him what I was hoping it would look like, the mask that Fee wears in the book. And you know, suddenly we saw an image of it, and I was like, this is it, this is perfect. And so I went to Dark Horse. I told my agent, I was like, it's time for me to kick open the doors on a comic book imprint. You know, I've been a comic book fan forever and stuff, and I want to write some comics. And so, you know, let me find a place to set up shop. You know, got to be creator owned. So obviously it's not going to be one of the big two. Yeah. And I talked to Mike Richardson, and he was like, you know, let's do a thing here. And so we created Secret Stash Press and popped Maskerade out into the world. And it was fun, man. You know, it's not related to the Askewniverse in any way. And when I do superhero stuff, I tend to do it darker and hardcore and stuff, and it's pretty dark hardcore book. And this one's got humor in it as well. Like the characters, you know, hide in plain sight vigilante. She's like a fucking influencer who's got like a TV show, and she's huge, but secretly she's this fucking vigilante who's on the hunt for these people that killed her brother. It's like some fun comic book stuff, man. And so delightful that Dark Horse was into it enough to publish it. And then the other book I did for Dark Horse was Quick Stops, which is definitely more up my alley. It's a book I've been trying to do for years, which is like, I'm going to make Askewniverse comics again. Back in the day, we used to make comic books based on the View Askew characters. There were Jane, Silent Bob comics, Clerks comics, so forth and so on. And then I stopped doing it for a long, long time. So with Quick Stops, it's an anthology title where I get to kind of tell one-off stories with all the characters from the Askewniverse, and that's been absolutely delightful. So the first 4 issues of that came out, and they put that into a hardcover. And then the next 4 issues start in November, and the next 4 issues of Quick Stops is this Mooby's secret origin story, and our golden calf cow character. In Dogma, there's a cursory reference to Nancy Goldriff, the person who created her. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to do the Nancy Goldriff story. And it's like so fucked up and grown up and tawdry. Like it's like a fucking podcast, like one of those murder podcasts. It was fun story to write and stuff. I can't, some of the View Askewniverse, the first season of Quick Stop, the first 4 issues, are very funny stories, meant to be funny stories. Quick Stops, Volume 2, Cash Cow is the storyline about Mooby. There's funny stuff in it, but it's definitely fucking like darker in tone. But Jane and Silent Bob do pop up in it eventually and have some funny shit going on. So I've been enjoying being back in the world of comics, writing stories, and me and Andy are going to kick back at the end of October and come up with the next Maskerade storyline. Hopefully John will draw again. He drew the first 4 issues and did all the covers, and then he let the next 4 issues go into the hands of a very talented artist. And I think he might be ready to jump on and do the next 4 of the next volume of Maskerade 2 TOO, I think we're calling it.
Nice. And that's very cool. I mean, Masquerade was a super cool story. My wife, she's real big into true crime and all those like catch a criminal stories. And when I told her, like, hey, Kevin Smith wrote this to catch a criminal, but basically the person who catches the criminals dresses up at night and goes and kills them, she's like,
Yeah.
holy shit, that's incredible. So the fact that you got my wife, who's not normally into comics is pretty, that's saying something for sure.
That
And
means thank you for that.
absolutely. And I was going to mention Quick Stops as well. I mean, I'm so excited for the new ones. I'm so excited to see about the origin of the golden calf, and the fact, and I don't want to spoil it for anyone who hasn't read it yet, but the 2 characters that you said ended up being related, I never knew they were related, but it makes perfect fucking sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Two of Quick Stops is a story of Brody and Randall going to a funeral of their cousin Walter. And so both of them referenced cousin Walter separately in movies. And so, I was always like, oh, they're related. And so it was the first time I got to bring Brody and Randall together in a story. It was really quite fun for me. And
it was so good.
Oh,
Now rolling into comics still, we can't talk about comics without talking about the Stash. Shout out to the boys at the Stash. I know recently they just introduced a new, if you don't have a local comic shop, we can be your local shop. Do you want to talk about that at all?
Yeah, it's nice. They opened a subscription service, which, I never understood why we didn't have that. We had a TV show at one point. So it's like, we've
one
had
of my favorite shows ever.
Thank you. We've had essentially a free commercial for years on AMC.
Yeah.
So it's nice that the subscription service has been opened up beyond the locals that came in. We always had a pretty strong local subscription membership service, but being able to mail them out to people who, they're like, look, I'm nowhere near a comic book store. I might as well buy them from you guys. Feels wonderful. So yeah, Mike, as Apsic, who runs the Stash, has kind of tripled our subscription numbers by opening it up to the world, which is nice. For some people too, they're like, I get to say I bought my books at Jay and Silent Bob's, which, for a person that matters to, I guess it matters. And it matters to us that they were going to spend their money somewhere. We're happy they spend it with Jay and Silent Bob.
Absolutely. I mean, I know tons of nerds who, can never celebrate Free Comic Book Day because they don't have a local shop and they can't new books that are out. They just have to get it digital. I'm like, if you still, like Stan said, digital comics are good, but it doesn't, beat holding one in your hand. It ends up
True.
cash, and get your comics that way.
Absolutely true. And we're pretty sure that when he was talking about getting it in your hand, he was talking about comics. But any number of things.
For sure.
Erotic charged moment of conversation with Stanley.
For sure. All right, now, I can't let you go without talking about mental health. You did that video a few months ago that
Mhm.
just completely blew me away and brought me to tears because it just, I related with a lot of the stuff in the video, just the fact, the whole, I don't want to fix my own problems because it's easier to fix somebody else's problems. And, and being a people pleaser, it's something I've dealt with my whole life for the same reason. I was a fat kid too when I was little. And, I'll do whatever you want as long as you don't make fun of me. I totally related with that. So I kind of want to ask, how are things going now? What kind of, are you still in a good headspace? Is everything going okay?
Yeah, it's I've been out the loony bin now. Let's see, February, March, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, 8 months. And you know, I've been mindful ever since. There was a period a couple last month I forgot um how important breathing is as a reset. Normally I do a show called Meditations over at that Kevin Smith Club 3 times a week. But while we were making the movie, I wasn't doing it because just buried in the flick. And so, there I would always breathe every day with the audience, like just do 5 by 5, 5 in, 5 hold, 5 out, 5 hold. And it's crazy, man, how necessary it absolutely is. And when I was in Sierra Tucson, like they taught us the importance of breathing. Breathing grounds you here in the here and now. A lot of us spend so much of our headspace in the past and the future. And the past is depression, and the future is anxiety. You can't change the past; it already happened, and you have no control over the future whatsoever. So it's always best to be in the moment. The moment is what you control, and generally speaking, unless horrible things are happening in the moment is not as bad as the anxious ridden future you create or the past that you dwell on over and over again. So breathing is an important part of that because you can't breathe in the past and you can't breathe in the future. You can only breathe in the present, in the exact moment you are. Then focusing on the now, being mindful of the present. And they have pithy little sayings like it's called the present because it's a gift. It is, I mean, it's corny as shit, but it is a
Sure.
gift to remember that right here and right now, nothing's wrong. We spend so much time in our heads fretting about the past, about what we said wrong, what went wrong, what this fucker did, that if you live in the past in your head, there's always something wrong. In the future, we're always trying to predict problems, worried about what's going to happen to us. It creates a lot of anxiety. That too is something we have no control over. If you just stop periodically and think really hard, like what is absolutely wrong at this moment in time, generally speaking, you come up with like nothing. Like there is technically no problem right now. Yes, there will always be issues, but these things that I'm worried about, I'm creating in my head by dwelling on past events, conflating them with the future. In the here and now, it's always important to gut check yourself and make sure that the moment you're in is not this, but it's reality. And in reality, chances are things are not bad at the moment. We create a lot of bad in our heads and we can experience a lot of bad. I'm not saying bad things don't happen. Absolutely. Of course they do. But so much of our day is spent worrying about what's to come that we don't think about or appreciate what's happening right now. And sometimes nothing is happening. And sometimes that's the beautiful thing. You're not surrounded by death or loss or system failure or something like that. And in this moment in time, like for example, I am at my mom's house in Florida, and a couple months ago we almost lost mom. She was in the hospital for like 3 fucking months. When I head out of here, I got a college gig on Wednesday at Fairleigh Dickinson, and then the Smodcastle Film Festival kicks off October 12th through the 15th. But right now, I get to hang out with mom, sit around and watch Shark Tank, something I never do. And not because I'm like, fuck Shark Tank. I just never thought about it. When, mom's like, sit down, watch this. And she enjoys it. And, I kind of got off on how much she was getting off on. I was like, hey, look at you, secret investor, armchair investor. And nothing's wrong at this moment in time. My mom's alive and well. I'm alive and well. Life comes down to moments, kids. And, we've been bullshitted to by movies our whole lives. And I'm part of the problem because I create bullshit movies as well. About a 3-act structure and happily ever after. That shit doesn't exist. Life comes down to moment by moment. And when your life is done, you're lucky to look back on a collection of wonderful moments. Yeah, some shitty things happen along the way. Some horrible things probably happen along the way. Loss is inevitable, whether it be loss of friendship, loss of life, loss of innocence. It's a cruel world out there, but it's also a wonderful world with uh, warmth in when you're looking in all the right places, and people that do give a shit, even though it seems like a kind of cold environment. So, for me, I tend to focus on the here and now, and try to keep it mindful, and always doing the gut check of like, what are you upset about? What is happening right now that is upsetting you? And chances are it's nothing that's happening right now. It's me fretting about something that's to come, or me worried about something that already happened. And doing that check has kept me healthy, kept me out of anxiety, and away from darkness for a few months now.
That's awesome. And yeah, I mean, just today, I got some news that might be good and might not be good. And, it's been hard to not fret about, the worst case scenario. But, right now, everything's good. If you worry about it right now, I mean, it's not going to change what happened, and it's not going to make it better. So, I mean, worrying about it's not going to do anything. So you just got to kind of, like you said, do it moment by moment, just to kind of, so you don't drive yourself crazy.
There was a great quote that David Mamet put into The Spanish Prisoner. And he had Ricky Jay say it. And the line was, worry is interest paid in advance on a debt that never comes due. And I've always loved that. It's true. All the worrying in the world is not going to stop what's coming. So best to not waste your time in the present concerning yourself. If you're going to write a fiction about the future, which is all it is, write a good one. It's 50-50, but it's going to be good or it's going to be bad. So if you're going to make shit up, make up the good stuff. If you're going to imagine something's going to happen, but probably best to just leave it all behind and concentrate on the here and now. Be thankful for this fucking moment, because one day we want to run out of moments, and you'll wish you had this one back. Like, I can't believe I wasted my time watching fucking Kevin Smith talk in yet another interview. But for those that are there and are like, hey, I'm getting something out of this, welcome and thank you. And yes, we get very few moments. Make the most of them. I'm not saying you got to go out and do fucking big things and cure cancer and shit like that, or even make movies or anything like that. I'm saying, like, just enjoy the fact that every life comes down to some really wonderful collection of moments. It can't all be good all the time. And when it's really good, capture that, remember that, appreciate it for when it's there, because it's fleeting, it goes away, and it makes you waiting for another one of those moments. Life doles it out that way. But it's good. I mean, we don't know what's after this, so we know this place, and yeah, it's got its creaks, and yeah, it's got its horrors and atrocities, but it also has its beauties and its warmth and its wonders. So, best of all possible worlds, as far as I know. Nobody's shown me evidence to the contrary. Might as well enjoy it while we're here, because we're here for so little.
Now, before I let you go, is there anything else you want to talk about? I know you mentioned the film festival this weekend, and I know the cruise is coming up. Did you want to talk about those a little bit?
Yeah, cruise is cute. Well, we got the film festival. Smodcastle Film Festival takes place October 12th to the 15th, sorry, at Smodcastle Cinemas in Atlantic Highlands. I'll be there introing and interviewing people and stuff like that. And then February of 2024, this February coming up, we got our inaugural Jay and Silent Bob's Cruise Askew, which right now is like 78% sold out. So we still got some rooms left. But yeah, it's been wonderful. It's going to be 3,000 of us on a boat, lots of live podcasts, live show. We're going to read the Mallrats 2 script with Jason Lee and Ethan Supleeks. They're coming as well. It's full of people like Brian O'Halloran, Jeff Anderson, Jason Mewes, me, me, Mark Bernardin and I doing Fat Man Beyond, me and Ralph Garman doing Hollywood Babylon, Jay and I doing Jay and Silent Bob Get Old, me and Andy McElfresh doing Education, me and Jen Schwalbach doing Plus One. So it's a 3-day cruise, leaves from Miami and goes to the Bahamas and then comes back. And it's full of fucking shows. And then live music at night from a bunch of artists who've been on our soundtracks, including Soul Asylum and stuff. So it's going to be a fun ass cruise, man. You can go to Jane Silent Bob cruiseaskew.com for tickets.
Very awesome. And where else can we keep up with you on social media just to see what's coming up?
I still keep my Instagram pretty active. My Twitter, I basically use to sell shows at Smodcastle all the time. I guess we still podcast. We still do Fat Man Beyond. We tend to do it at least once a week, if not every other week. But, you can't escape Kevin Smith. He'll fucking find you on the internet, kids. That's a promise and a threat.
All right. Well, to keep up to date with us, with all this that's going on in the world of nerd, make sure you check out our website, geek-network.com. You can find us at GeeksAZ on Instagram and Twitter, Geek Network on Facebook. I am CD is Weird on Instagram. The music for the show's by Polygon Horizon. They're a great band. Go check them out on Bandcamp. The logos for my show are done by Chris Chandler and Mike Belcher. Great comic book guys and great friends. Go check them out. And if you like the show, please leave a review and tell your friends, because word of mouth is our friend. And remember, kids, to embrace the things that feel you're weird and always geek responsibly. Kevin, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Such a pleasure, Chris. Many thanks.